Greetings of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum. I am Kareem Allah Muhammad, the representative of Allah in the person of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and of his Messiah, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I greet you once again in the words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. Today we're going to cover more on the defense of the domestic life of the Messiah, and we'll start off by describing what is the domestic life. The domestic life, in one sense, it involves the Messiah's polygamous marriage. That means being married to more than one woman at the same time. Most profoundly, however, the domestic life encompasses the protection, reformation, and elevation of women through divine knowledge and governance. This universal governance features the leadership of women with the Messiah in establishing the everlasting kingdom of God. That is the domestic life. And in the domestic life, that description, we have Allah throughout the kingdom of God and the elevation of women beyond where we see them now in this world, which is at the bottom of the barrel. Now, why must the domestic life be defended? You, as well as I know, what invokes people's emotion is when you bring their private life into public view. And whenever this world or the satanic forces don't like a certain person, they always bring in what that person is doing to their people or what that person is doing to their family, so people can conjure up all of these kinds of emotions, and it normally also always have sexual connotations. Either it's the man's wife or the woman and her husband or some love triangle, but something to just bring scandal and rev up the people's emotions so now they can begin to judge that person based on what the media says of that person. And this is how it's always done. That's their MO. You and I know it, and many times we have fed into that. I'm asking us this time, don't feed into it. Now, that's what we should expect from the satanic leaders. I'm going to show you a clip now of an impromptu interview that Malcolm X did with one of the reporters. The first part of when it comes on, you'll just hear silence because there was nobody recording anything that was happening until he got up to the mic and began to tell the reporters of why he left the Nation of Islam. So I'm going to play that clip right now and then make a few comments on it, because we're going to see this again. The devil don't have too much, so he plans on recycling what he used 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, particularly for the young generation who really don't know a lot about the history of the Nation of Islam. So anyway, I'll make those comments a little later after this clip. So let us watch this clip from Malcolm X.
Frankly, it has been a well-known fact, though only in the form of rumor, that there has been a great deal of apprehension at my being out of the black Muslim movement on the part of the black Muslims themselves. And I had stated in a newspaper article about an effort to take my life back in January, and at that time the Muslims denied it. In fact, they tried to make it appear to my brother that I was insane. But on a program in Chicago called Hotline, this moderated by Wesley South, John Ali, the national secretary, admitted, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, one of these days last week, that they absolutely were going to kill me.
Why are they threatening your life?
Well, primarily because they're afraid that I will tell the real reason that that I'm out of the black Muslim movement, which I never told. I kept to myself. But the real reason is that Elijah Muhammad, the head of the movement, is the father of 8 children by 6 different teenage girls, 6 different teenage girls who were his private personal secretaries. Four of them had one child apiece by him. Two of them had two children, and one of those two is pregnant right now in Los Angeles, where they're his third child. And the one who first made me aware of this was Wallace Muhammad, Mr. Muhammad's son. And it was their fear that if I remained in the black Muslim movement, and this came into the knowledge of his followers, that they would leave him and follow me. So a plan immediately was set in motion to take me down, put me out, and the statement that I allegedly made, or not that I allegedly made, I did make it, the statement that I made about Kennedy was used as a pretext to take me down. But in reality, it was because I had come to New York and told Joseph, the captain in New York, and the secretary and the minister in Boston about these children that Mr. Muhammad had. And it was that right there was the real reason for my being out of the movement.
Did you get out of? What will you take to protect yourself from this threat?
I take no steps. I have a rifle. If anybody comes to my house without a good reason, I intend to try and use it, and that's all.
Now, brothers and sisters, Malcolm X did not tell the full story, and he is a man who has some mastery over language. We know more of the history of the Nation of Islam at that time because of the work of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So you and I can avail ourselves to YouTube videos of what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has said concerning that relationship and that part of the nation's history. He was not too long ago, a few months ago, on Sway in the Morning, where he talked about the domestic life, and he talked about the evil machinations of this satanic world and its leaders to come against the domestic life, or to come against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad through the domestic life, and how Malcolm played a role in that. Because of whatever disappointment he experienced, then he decided to go to the man that he called a devil for almost more than 1 decade to now make his case against his once teacher. Again, I'm not going to cover too much of that because it's already there. So what I'm going to ask you to do, brothers and sisters, and anybody who's listening, when the devil brings that out, you know, he's counting on the fact that he still has sway over our thinking, and that he's going to lure us into his filth and indecency, because he's a pig at heart and likes to be in a slop trap, bringing up and starting scandals, and then bringing us into that kind of nonsense in the waste of human thought. So what we need to do is say, you know, I know you're the devil. You're the satanic forces. You and your people have always come against us. You have always lynched us. You have always tried to make your entertainment our misery and suffering. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, to the research team who looked at and pulled out documents of the FBI's involvement in the murder of Malcolm X. This is all known. It's a matter of whether or not you're going to go and take advantage of it, or we're going to fall for the hokey doke and just become ears, all ears for the satanic forces that not only want to kill the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, but kill all black people and the original people as well. We should not do that. Let us show God and ourselves that we have matured and we know who our enemy is. Don't have anything to do with whether you have a white wife or a white girlfriend. That's immaterial. That's your own personal life. But when we look across the spectrum of black people in America and black people throughout the world and the huge satanic forces, we're going beyond your little personal and my little personal area, because we like to judge things off of our own personal reference point. But that pales against the global assault of this satanic system on the lives of black people, original people, poor people. So let's raise up our conscience beyond our own homes and look at a broader picture. Let us avail ourselves to what we know the truth about what went on when Malcolm X defected or when he left the Nation of Islam, he was never put out. He was asked not to speak and set down, but he decided to leave. So there's a lot of things that he says in even that interview that doesn't even jive with the reality of it. It's not consistent with, timing and how those events took place. But when a man is hurt for whatever reason he felt he was hurt, then, or disappointed, anything happens. And we know that in our lives, when we're hurt or disappointed, all bets are off. We're going to go for broke and do things that we know we shouldn't do, even if it comes down to to absolutely lying about the reality of those events. Now, in the Study Guide 18, Overcoming Emotion or Rising Above Emotion into the Thinking of God, which deals with the domestic life of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the domestic life of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and it deals with the trial of the Nation of Islam, based on the domestic life, which is really the nation of black people, because when the hypocrisy broke out surrounding the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's domestic life in the 60s, we had learned that Allah, in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, was really going to close it down, which is what I mean. Close it down. What do you mean, Brother Kareem? Meaning that you have a messenger among you. He's laboring to give you the warning and guide you. But if your mistreatment of him is that egregious, then God don't have to keep him here. So he can pull him out and then just bring his wrath down and destroy everything in sight. We see that in the scriptures with Sodom and Gomorrah, with the people of Noah. What makes us think, living in the worst country that ever existed in terms of decadence, filth, and indecency, immorality, and unrighteousness, that God would not bring that upon us? I mean, so we just have to be sensible. Now, no matter what laws they pass about same-sex marriage, is not in agreement with God, and God controls the weather, and he controls things, the forces of nature that can take us off the planet immediately. Congress don't control it, neither does your local government, and neither does any state government. So I would be concerned about the one who can bring a tornado or bring hurricanes, or even bring, he is bringing all that, including fires right now. So let me just read this statement from that Study Guide 18, Rising Above Emotion into the Thinking of God. And this is what I'm asking you, and we have been asked to do from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and also from God himself in the Holy Quran, dealing with actual facts, not becoming emotional and being drawn into something that's going to cause us our lives and we don't get the best results out of what God is doing. So he states this in the Study Guide 18. He's talking about the encroachment on the domestic life, meaning that some people took the domestic life upon themselves when God had ordered the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to do it. Now, some people may say, well, Brother Kareem, does that include you? No, that doesn't include me. I have been ordered to do what I am doing. And I think some of you may realize that now. I'm not a liar, and I'm not before you talking foolishness. And many of you who already know me know that as well. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about me. My job is to get us prepared for the onslaught of the synagogue of Satan and the attack on the Messiah and the attack on the original people. Now, he says, proof of this encroachment, he meaning the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and Study Guide 18. Proof of this encroachment can be seen in the way in which Malcolm X handled the knowledge of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's domestic life. Although Malcolm knew the proper language with which to describe the domestic life of Muhammad, he chose to call the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's relationships to his wives, quote, having sex with teenage secretaries, end quote. This was to conjure up emotion and cause us to paint the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the light of a dirty old man, blinding us to the practical reality of God's judgment with regard to his nation as well as his servant. That is from Study Guide 18, overcoming emotion into the thinking of God. Well, we say that we are gods and we're from God. Well, God, of course, does not think and base his actions off emotion. He uses actual facts, and he's a scientist. And that's what we are to be if we are mature enough. Now, we know the domestic life test is coming back. We know that the devil is going to spew lies now that the Messiah is making his way to Washington, D.C. for 10-10-15. Now, I'm in a lane which says, Brother Kareem, get the people prepared for this onslaught. So some people may say, well, why is he bringing this up now while the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is dealing with 10-10-15? Brother Kareem may be a distraction. He's trying to make himself big. He's trying to put himself out there. No, I'm not. And nothing that I've said proves that I'm trying to do that. God has a plan. And we know the devil has a plan. So the devil didn't see me coming, and most of you didn't see me coming anyway. But we are here to be prepared for not only the mass media attack, but by the grace of God, the physical assault that's coming our way. Somebody has to be minding the store and looking at other fronts. And I am one that's looking at this front. Now, he used teenage secretaries. So, brothers and sisters, and whoever else is viewing, you know, at the end of the day, it comes down to, again, what you know about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, his integrity, his morality. Most of us don't know much about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad except the lies that's already went forth about him. And this is why he's not even included in most Black history celebrations, because they used Malcolm to do a pretty good job in painting the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as a dirty old man. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has done a great job and is still continuing that and representing his teacher as not only the Messiah in Christ, but even more than that, which is Allah in person. Because as I said not too many messages ago, if God makes you up into himself, then who are you? Now, we've already covered that point. We'll come back to it maybe in another message. I'm just going to move on. But the point I was making is that the work of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has cleared some of what the devil has spewed against the morality and integrity of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, in this mass assault that's coming our way, and it will be massive, and some of you, you again think you have a shoe in and you don't have to be attentive. Well, you may be the ones washed away in the flood. I'm just letting you know that. Because, humility says maybe I need to listen and tie up my camel, or maybe I need to tie up my boat for this one because it can get washed downstream. Some of us don't think we need to tie up anything. So I'm not to decide who goes down the river or who's able to hold on, even if you have to hold on to a little tree that still, by the grace of God, has its roots deep and is not getting blown away in the flood. Allah decides that. I'm just delivering this message to you to help us become inspired and also prepared. Now, again, it comes down to whether or not you or I believe that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the messenger of God and more than that, based on the great teaching over near 40 years of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Again, we have to avail ourselves to all of the messages that are available to us on YouTube. So I'm not going to go into all of that. We can do that. We can turn off the TV, or we can look away from some of the foolishness and now begin to feed our minds on truths. And that's not to say that that's what we're doing. I'm not assuming that that's what any of us are doing. I'm just making a statement that that information and knowledge is available and we should make use of it. So we can have the 411 from our point of view rather than the 411, which is nothing but lies from our mortal and open enemies that we all know indeed are our mortal and open enemies. So for me and you to listen to a mortal and an open enemy and ride on what they say, then we're either scared to death Negroes who don't deserve to live the next day, we're just foolish, or we are not operating with the full capacity of our minds. At least we don't even need to operate with the full capacity. We're not thinking enough about things to really give it the just due that it takes. You don't see your grandchild's future riding on this, or your great grandchildren, or your unborn children. But indeed, our future is tied to this upcoming onslaught from our mortal enemies. Now, I'm going to use this book here because we're going to talk about something of the domestic life from the Holy Quran, which is the only book where we can talk about it from. The Holy Quran, it has prophecies that are fulfilled, but it's a book that God is speaking directly to Muhammad. Muhammad, say this. Muhammad, say that. Muhammad, do this. Oh, you who believe, do this, do that. So it's an instructional book that was preserved for the last day because it's the Messiah's book. Now, this book, Quran, was not even put into book form when Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah was alive 1400 years ago. This was a symbol after he died, and there was a lot of machinations going on as to what this book would look like in the end. God says in this book that he's responsible for the assembling of it and the protecting and guarding of it. Prophet Muhammad was supposed to see it through to its completion, but he didn't live long enough to do that. He died of heart failure at around 63 years old. In the Quran, he's being warned to some extent. You know, these are the verses of the book. God, in one sense, is talking to him in revealing verses of the book. And then in one ayah, it says, "Wilt thou kill thyself with grief because they believe not?" And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that Prophet Muhammad, was trying to convert the European. He wanted to see the European become like him because he was a special man, a Caucasian man, that was rooted in submission to the will of God. And he thought that that could be applied to other people of his kind, even though the nature of the Caucasian people, the way they came about, does not support their natural desire to submit to the will of Allah. This is why they've always needed a strong arm that Moses put on them, a strong law, and that Prophet Muhammad put on them a strong law as well. But anyway, he did not see it completed because he died. So later on, as the hadith goes, as many of those who were with him, who had little pieces here and there, which was really scattered beyond Arabia. There's a whole history to the assembly and all of the drama that played out, even where you had some books that were already or half books in circulation that was burned by one of the caliphs. A lot of different things going on to bring this book into where it is, and it was really part of the deviation that Prophet Muhammad said that 3 generations after him would not be of him because they did some things to this Quran in his name, and then the hadith in his name to try to make him something that he was not. The same with the New Testament. But again, this is richer and deeper subjects, and all of it's covered in this book, The Defense of the Domestic Life of the Messiah, because the enemies of Satan will attack the Holy Quran. They will attack Prophet Muhammad. They will attack Master Fard Muhammad. They will attack the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They will attack the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. They will attack the Nation of Islam. That's guaranteed. So all of these areas have to be considered. Now, to move on. Notwithstanding all of the drama, if you would, surrounding the assembly of the Holy Quran that we have today. It was a guarded book. In the Holy Quran itself, in Surah 3, informs us that God, when he comes, he will teach the Messiah the book, the wisdom, the Torah, and the gospel. Why? Because the Messiah's job is to unite humanity. God does not have different religions, and all prophets are from him. Man has made up religions, and man has made religious figures deities in order to satisfy or order to consecrate or establish their religion. So now you have men worshiping prophets, and you have different religions that they attach to the prophet's name. So the Holy Quran is a book that also releases all prophets from teaching other than the oneness of God and trying to make themselves the center of God's teaching so the people can worship them. No prophet taught that the people should worship them. So that's one area that the Holy Quran takes care of. Now, Master Fard Muhammad, when he came to North America in 1930, choosing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who chose Master Fard Muhammad as well and chose to be the messenger of God to the black people of America and all the original people of the Western Hemisphere, and a warner to the governments of the earth. That is the mission of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Master Fard Muhammad gave him a Holy Quran. The first Quran he gave him was the Maulana Ali. Well, he gave him an Arabic Quran first. He couldn't read it. There's a lot of wisdom in that because the new book that he has received is a new book that's written in New Arabic. But anyway, I'm not going to go too far in that. He gave him a Maulana Ali Quran, the 1917 version, which was the only Quran or version of the Maulana Muhammad Ali English translation of the Holy Quran available at that time. In 1934, before his departure, meaning before the departure of Master Fard Muhammad, he gave the Honorable Elijah Muhammad a Yusuf Ali or Abdullah Yusuf Ali Holy Quran. Neither one is better than the other, but because they're both written in English and you're trying to make solid translations, there are some slight nuances between the way Maulana Muhammad Ali has phrased some verses as opposed to the way Yusuf Ali has done that. Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that those are two of the best translations and cautioned us against looking at other translations. Now, I want to, with that said, that this is the Messiah's book. And I can say a little bit more because, part of the Hadith, I'll just make this statement, which came 200 or so my years after Prophet Muhammad was dead. It was not, so these are oral traditions that they put together, and they had developed some kind of process by which they can authenticate it. Siha means authentic, but nothing is really authentic except the Holy Quran and the true interpretation that we're getting from God himself. You can't say something's authentic when it's 200 years after the fact, and you have a lot of inconsistencies and contradictions with this book, the Holy Quran. Now, that's part of the deviation. I don't want to go too far into that. But the point that I wanted to make is that part of what Hadith does, it tries to make Prophet Muhammad the fulfillment of the man like Moses that comes in terms of Deuteronomy 18:18, that God will raise up in the last day. I'm paraphrasing. A man who would be similar to Moses, meaning that Moses, as he did depicted in the scriptures, which is prophecy, will come among a people who've been in bondage and take that people out of bondage into a land of their own. They tried to make Prophet Muhammad, the Islamic scholars who put together Hadith, and they're still championing that line of thinking. It goes into a lot of details, but at some point in time, 1400 years ago, there was the reality that the Jesus of 2,000 years ago was not the Messiah. And Christianity was all over that area in Arabia, but it wasn't the Christianity that you and I were taught by the Caucasian people. That Christianity was drummed up and conjured in Europe and Rome. And Constantine, the great emperor, had a lot to do with the Christian creed now that has a mixture of pagan practices. It's like a smorgasbord of just pagan and heathen in the name of Jesus. Heathenism in the name of Jesus. It's all in the books. It's all in the history. I talked to a sister one time on it. She knew about Constantine. She knew about the Council of Nice, I think in 325 AD, where all of these monks that some people called crazed men at that time had gotten together, so they were not even considered noble, scholarly people. They were considered people that had their own different brands of what they wanted to practice, their own different types of culture, their own different types of paganism. You know, everything was going on in Rome like everything is going on here. You got groupies, you got swingers, you got prostitutes, you got people being sexually trafficked, you got homosexuals, you got pedophiles, you got people that worship turtles, you got people who worship stars, you got different brands of Jesus worshipers. It's the same situation. Just, you know, carte blanche, free for all, be what you want to be. Color your hair the way you want to color it, tattoo your whole body, do whatever you want to do because it's your show, personally, and God ain't in the picture. That's how it was in Rome, and that's how it is right now. So I think you can draw the correlation pretty easy. Now, just imagine us now trying to get together and decide, you know, what is the proper behavior for human beings. A lot of people are going to be upset because we won't be able to do anything that we want to do. Some people think, as I said several weeks ago, that the Holy Quran allows rape and that you get blessed by rape. I know I'm going a little bit further from the point that I initially wanted to make, but this is on time. I'm letting God guide me. Well, that's not in the Holy Quran. You can't find an ayat that proves that. So I don't know what Holy Quran they're reading. I'm not even sure what hadith they're reading. I know they're wrong, they're in error, and they deserve their necks to be broken or their heads chopped off and thrown into the deepest pit that we can find, and their bodies burned and their ashes sprinkled on the moon. That's what those kinds of people that think that way, that you can rape a woman, say a prayer, and God is with that. We're going to show them in a few days that God is not with that, but we're going to show them what God is with. He's with the total and complete annihilation of that mind, even if it's attached to that body. Now, these machinations go on when you now want to position Prophet Muhammad as Christ. Now that you know that Jesus is 2,000 years ago was not that. Again, you can go more into detail, or more details are offered in the book on the domestic life, this book right here. Now, let's deal with Surah 33. We're going to talk about how Allah is responsible for the domestic life of the Messiah. He arranges the marriages. He orders the Messiah to enter certain marriages, as he orders the Messiah to do everything that the Messiah has done and continues to do. Allah is his guide all the way through. That's verified in the Holy Quran. So again, it comes down to how you view the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and how you view the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Do you view them as men of God? Do you view them in the messianic function that they have? And if you do that, then there are directives that's clear that God is guiding them. So when somebody attacks the Honorable Elijah Muhammad or the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the first thing that Brother Kareem asks himself is, well, you know, Allah is their guide, and you can always prove it because it's the fulfillment of prophecy, their actions. I'm not sure how many of us will be disciplined or even knowledgeable enough or desirous enough to do it like that. But that is the best way to do it, because at the end of it all, Allah is the sinner and he is the one that issues judgment on this world and judgment in each of our lives. So in Surah 33:50, Allah states, "O Prophet, we have made lawful to thee thy wives." Then it begins to look at the different categories where those wives come from. Some are prisoners of war, some are those who travel with him during the time when the Islamic community is starting. Some are of various cultures. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can read that as Surah 33:50. But the main point was, we have made lawful to thee thy wives. That's saying that Allah, who is the we, has made and ordained that Muhammad, the Messiah, can have these wives. He's behind it. Now, Surah 13:38, called the thunder. It reads, "And certainly we have sent messengers before you and appointed for them wives and children. It is not in the power of a messenger to bring a sign except by Allah's permission. For every term there is an appointment." This is why I said a few weeks ago that, you can go all the way back to the 80s and bring something that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan may have said regarding himself about the domestic life. Allah unfolds not only people's identity, but also their function. And when the identity is unfolded or becomes known and the function does, then Allah requires of them certain mandates. How can you function in a new function and not have a change of what God wants you to do? That's going to be natural. But so every term there is an appointment of what? There's an appointment of wives, and from those wives, there's an appointment of children who will be helpers in the cause of Islam. That's just an easy interpretation of Surah 13, verse 38. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is not here among us. Just like when Master Fard Muhammad left, he left the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as a messenger. And later on in his development, he was required to take wives. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told Brother Jabril and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that Allah forced him to take wives. Forced him to take wives. He had been married to Mother Clara Muhammad for quite some time. And we know of some of that same sentiment with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Now, I'm just going to spend some time on that because we live in America and women are looked to as playthings. And, most women would probably believe that any man is desirous of them and that any man is looking at them. I guess that's good to think that because you don't want to think that nobody is looking at you. That's not in the nature of a woman, and certainly that's not in the nature of anybody who wants to be recognized. We should not be recognized in a certain way, of course, but to be totally disregarded and neglected, nobody is trying to allow that to happen, and certainly not women. So we have a society where everything is show. We're going to show the boobs, we're going to show the butt, we're going to show the hair, we're going to show all of this. But every man is not a dog like that, not men of God. And when Allah raises a man of God, he understands, he puts in that man an understanding of the nature of life. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was well aware of the extraordinary value in teaching of woman being the second self of God. I hope you're listening to me. And as such, he's not going to just go on his own self, but by his lonesome and decide I'm going to have a wife. Some brothers may do that. Some Arabs may do that. And that's all well and good if you can afford that. And, and you're taking a woman who needs security and giving her security. And in return, you're, building the kind of family that can be meaningful, not to only you, but to the human family at large. Allah allows a man up to 4 wives if he can handle them, meaning provide for them. I may touch on that a little bit later. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad clearly made it clear that Allah forced him to. Because no man, first of all, who's been married for a woman for 20, 30 years is kicking down the door to get another wife. No righteous man is going to get a chick on the side, if you would, or a girlfriend. That's not in the righteous man nature, certainly not in the nature of a prophet or a messenger who answers directly to God. God hears his thinking, God guides him through his thinking. So he's really, an agent of God more so than we realize it. I mean, when God is in a man, that man embodies the indwelling spirit of God. So he thinks as God thinks. And this is what you're looking at when you look at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So no, they're not rushing in to be with many women. God decides and orders women in their lives, again, for a purpose that he knows and that he unveils and reveals to them. So when God orders you to do that, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in the interview that he did on Sway, why would the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and even himself choose to not reveal that aspect? Why is there a secret to the domestic life? And some of it has to do with our maturity level, of course, those who are in the Nation of Islam, and just black people generally. Because our disrespect of women, or our respect of women, rather, may not be where it should be for us to be successful in a polygamous marriage. There are several reasons why that relationship why they decided to keep that relationship secret. It's in this book. I'm not gonna speak on it too much. I said what needs to be said on it, but there's a reason for that. When the devil brings that up, well, why did he keep it secret? If it wasn't low down, then why didn't he just expose it? Well, you're dealing with a messenger of God, and he has to think about more than himself. And so the women who are involved and the families who are involved, they have to take that noble high road for the protection of the community until maturity and growth takes place. Now, that's an effective answer in a nutshell. It goes a little bit more deeper than that, because the wrath of God is always only an arm's length of way when it deals with how we treat the domestic life. So that's another aspect of that. Now, we don't know, I'm going to say this, we don't know everything about the domestic life. There's secrecy, there's things only a husband and a wife knows. And the Caucasian enemy of the mass media, the synagogue of Satan, he don't know everything about the domestic life. In one of Malcolm X's interviews, he talked about going to visit some of these women. I mean, he got to be just out of his mind. You could go visit one of the wives of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad so you can get her statements to use against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I mean, he just went a little bit insane there for a moment. He was on his way back, and the devil knew it, so he killed him, according to what the Honorable Louis Farrakhan has taught us. But is there drama in marriage? Yes. Meaning, are there challenges? It becomes drama the way people handle the misunderstanding or the miscommunication or the challenges. We can dramatize it, and then it can go out into the public. And when people feel disappointed, then of course they want to share their disappointment with other people, and eventually it makes its way into the hands of our mortal enemy, who decides, I'm going to, tilt it this way and tilt it that way and make the man of God look like, he's a womanizer. He's an immoral man. He's not altogether on the up and up. So you can avail yourself to this book if you want to know more of the details. I'm not going to sit here and explain it all. I'm just giving you some seeds based on the attack that's forthcoming, so you can at least know where to go to get more knowledge of it and more insight into the domestic life. Now, when Allah orders a man to take a wife, let's just think about this. Let's just be real, okay? A little bit here. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in 1977, he did not know much about his ultimate destiny. Allah, that would have been, that unfolds as he goes along. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad clearly told him, when you find out who you are, you will have to hold yourself down. So that meant he didn't know who he was at that time. So that's pretty clear for those who believe it. For those who don't, well, I can't help you in that area. But those are his words, and I'm just repeating them to you. You could take them and try to do what I'm doing and make great sense out of it. Or you can just say, well, you know, I have no proof. Well, you don't have any proof of anything anyway. You have to go with a man who has established credibility, integrity, and morality, and that has given us as a people light. We cannot ignore that fact. Most of us would be in a speakeasy right now or on some dance floor acting silly if God didn't bring the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to give us light. So we always have to remember that if we have any light, we should not turn it back on to those who gave us light. A word to the wise is sufficient. So no man, again, married for quite some time is going into another marriage. So here's a prophet, here's a man who says, God has made me a messenger. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad did not quite know at that time that he would have to take wives. He said himself, I was wondering where, in his study of Prophet Muhammad, why this man had all these wives. And the same with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So when God gives you an order like that, then you have to carry it out. Now, we have the benefit of being in the 11th hour where all of these things are made known to us. But we were not at the beginning where these things unfolded, so we don't know how that knowledge was handled and all of the details that go with that. We don't know that. Maybe the devil knows more than most of us, and maybe that'll come to light as well. But there's always a struggle. And here's the greatest struggle, brothers and sisters, is this. And I can speak from my own experience, and this is why I perhaps went through my own experience. We can accept the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as a messenger of God today for those who want to. There are many people who don't and probably will never. We can accept the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as the Messiah, representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Many of us do, a lot of people don't, and many people won't ever do that. And that's okay, because you have your own mind, and wherever God takes your mind, then that's where you go. But in my defense of him, in my defense of the domestic life, there are always people who did not believe, even at that time, though they believed that these men were not who they are today. Right? Come on. Let's think on that for a second. We can say these words now, but would you have said that in 1977? Probably not. Would you have said that in 1981? No, you would not have. Meaning, would you have said the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is Christ? Would you have said the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is Messiah? No. No, you would not have. So any woman that is now ordered to be a spouse of either of them, would they wholeheartedly accept, or would they see now these men as somebody who's just trying to get more women? Let's think on that point for a moment. I'm saying at the beginning of their messianic mission, when you didn't see them and I didn't see them the way we see them now. Let's go back down memory lane, or just the lane of logic. So how does that sister respond? How does that person respond, really? See, we don't know that. But today, now that we know who they are, and this is how women are sometimes. This is how people are, but particularly women as well. Because most women want to be with someone who's got it going on. Why wouldn't you? Why would a woman want to be with a bum? Unless she saw potential in that bum and she could help move that bum along, which is what I hope most women think, and that bum is really not a bum. If it's a black man, he's God. He may just be in bummy conditions, but if you see deeper into him and his potential, you can bring that out of him. That's the context I'm using that word in. But now that you know this man is the Messiah, and he comes to the woman and says, Allah ordered me to take you as a wife, I don't think she would hesitate in raising her hand at that point. I don't think most women would at that point. I think in the beginning, when they didn't see him as that and that wasn't validated, then you have a problem in raising your hand, because now you may see him differently. I go into all of it in this book. This is my experience, and God brought me through it so that I could teach on the domestic life in this way, because the devil may have people lined up to go against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We don't know. But I'm just saying, that's how some women are. You want to be with the quarterback. You don't really want the tackle on the front line. You like the wide receiver that scores touchdowns. You don't like the center that snaps the ball and get buried underneath the defensive lineman. That's just how most people are, and that's why they get big money, and that's why women flock to that, because you want to be with the glory guy. But that does not mean that you have faith, because you're with the glory guy. Does it? That means that there's something in it for you, and you're a chosen one. And who wouldn't like that? But that doesn't mean your faith is deep. So when deep waters come and it's not all what you think it should be, then can you dig down deep and grab faith based on the fact that I know this man is Messiah, this man is messenger of God? Can you do that? And most times women can't do that, because there was another motivation behind it. Although that's not to say there was not faith. And I'm not saying that, and I'm not trying to indict any wife of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad or the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying that those are some of the challenges which brings up drama. And even in this Quran, Prophet Muhammad is said to have estranged himself from his wives because of what was going on and how he was being treated at that time as a husband, still a messenger of God, but now I see your humanity, and and I got some rights to say some things that I otherwise would not have said when I was, when I was not intimate or your spouse, when I was just a believer. And you know what I'm talking about, brothers and sisters. So I think we just need to be real all the way across the board. So the Holy Quran gives an account in Surah 33:30 of what I just raised. That's why I raised that point. Allah chooses people, their identities unfold, then he puts a command on you. Do you follow the command? If you love Allah and you have a relationship with him, regardless of what people think about you, you'll follow the command, and you will accept the consequences and the pain that comes with that, because that's how growth comes. And people won't understand, but God is not looking at the pain at the moment. He's looking at what's beyond that. So we who have that level of faith, which may be you as well, have to suffer through criticism, being scorned and even spoken of, and even being thought to be other than a righteous man. That's my experience in this defense of the domestic life. But that's okay. Because as long as the work of God is being done, then that's what my focus is. Now, whether somebody thinks that I'm lost my mind, I'm saying this because I'm through it for a reason, to be able to defend the domestic life of the Messiah with this book. So now you have people who misunderstand because God has made something lawful for you that you have to do. And do you run from it or do you proceed ahead? And most times we should have faith to go forward. We don't need to go with a posse. And God is enough as a validator of our actions. Now, the only thing that can happen is that the person that you're communicating that with, they can just say, no, I don't believe in what you're doing. That's fine. You lose no sleep over it because it's an order from God. It's not something that you put upon yourself. Now, I'm a man that's been married for coming up 31 years. And I'm a man who has raised children and have grandchildren. I did a lot of work in the Nation of Islam, and certainly I'm still have life, and I'm continuing to work on behalf of Allah. But I had some plans in my mind with an empty nest, and my plan did not include being in the position that I am now, in the place here of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan when he goes to the wheel as a messenger and as his Messiah to the people, continuing the messianic mission of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's my position. That's my function. And I did not see that, nor that I envisioned that. I had other plans, and it did not include having wives. So, for those who think that it's all about the domestic life involves just a man wanting to be with women, I beg your pardon. It is certainly not about that. No man would want another wife in that kind of, aspect. Most men are just not thinking about that. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I think I made my point. I don't want to go too far into that, but I just want to let people know that I've been married 30 years. And my relationship is well and it's good. So I'm not kicking down the door for another wife. And neither were they. But God put that on them for his purpose and for the growth of each of them and for the growth of the Nation of Islam. And that's where overcoming emotion into the thinking of God is. You have to do something that God requires you to do. And that's all it is. And we have to leave it right where it is. Now, Surah 33:28. O prophet, say to thy wives, if you desire this world's life and its adornment, come. I will give you a provision and allow you to depart a goodly departing. Why is that verse in there? Because the domestic life is not an easy life. We go into it and we have difficulty because the messianic labor is very, very heavy. And so you don't have the relationship, the ideal relationship some people want to have and maybe have had in another marriage. The messianic labor takes precedence because you're dealing with a messenger of God. You're dealing with the Messiah, right? So some women, wives, they just want something different, according to this verse. Again, I'm not dealing with any personal aspect of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's life, nor of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's life. Malcolm did say that some of the wives left when they learned of other wives, when he was referring to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I don't know how true that is. I know this verse is here, and it serves a purpose, and that's what we're dealing with. On the real, as they say. Now, verse 30, 2 verses later, 33:30. As I said last week, Surah 3, 33, and 66 are foundational surahs in understanding the domestic life if you have the right interpretation and the right heart. You're not going to understand anything with an evil heart. God won't even let you allow you to even look any deeper than what somebody's telling you, and you still can't look that deep into it if your heart is not of good intent. Verse 30, O wives of the prophet, whoever of you is guilty of manifestly improper conduct, the chastisement will be double for her. And this is easy for Allah. Allah chastising any of us is very easy for him to do because he's right in our hearts and right in our minds. But why is this there? What does manifestly improper conduct means? Could it mean what Malcolm did? Could it mean exposing private information that exposes the messenger of God, the Messiah? That's what Surah 66 is all about. So keep our minds open, okay? The domestic life of the Messiah can be defended, all of it, through this Quran, and it's defended here. Everything could be defended. Every aspect of it, because he functions according to Allah. I know I said it, I want to make it clear. But it can be defended by somebody who can defend it, and I'm one who can defend it by the grace of Allah, one selected to defend it. And prepared. Whether you get the book or not is immaterial to me. I'm about my job. And I know there's some people who are listening, and there's some people who's going to take me up on that, and they're going to be fine. While the rest of those who don't think much of me, don't think much of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, much of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, then you just go your own way, and we'll see how you fare. I'm not really concerned with you if you think that way anyway. You are doing me no favor. We, as the Holy Quran's verse 66 says, or 66 surah, save yourselves and your family. When God seals the doom, that's his command to the believers at that point. So I'm saving myself and my family by trying to save you by the grace of God. So in Surah 66 verse 1 it says, O prophet, why doest thou forbid thyself which Allah has made lawful for thee? Seekest thou to please thy wives? There's so much hadith wrong about the interpretation of this verse. That's a critical aspect, as they are saying in the life of Prophet Muhammad. But we know that's a book for the Messiah. That's a critical verse right there. I have 2 chapters on that verse in volume 2. But this verse indicates that Allah is guiding the Messiah, his domestic life. He's requiring him to do things because he's still guiding him. If I have 2 wives and God point me to another one, I'm going to do what God says do. The other 2 may not like it, but we're all being guided by Allah. See, we don't let down our laurels or our standing because, I'm in this intimate relationship and I don't like this and I don't like that. No, we are supposed to like what Allah likes and have enough trust and faith in the Messiah to continue to follow him as Allah guides him. That's very difficult for wives and children. That's very difficult for some believers, as we can see that some people didn't like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan bringing Dianetics in and, gave him a lot of flack. Not that you can hurt him over it. As he said, I know you don't understand. So it just, flows off of his shoulders because, as he said, we go to these schools and we get degrees. We have white people teaching us. He found something that will help us manage some of the psychological damage that we've suffered under tyranny of our mortal enemies. And it's a technique, it's a tool. God brings it through Hubbard, but that's fine. Can you use it? I don't make a hammer, but if I go and buy one from a maker who makes it and it happens to be a white company, I'm not concerned with that. I need to drive some nails into this wood and I need a hammer. So that's how the approach of intelligent men and women go. But not all of us are intelligent men and women. Some of us want to criticize, undue criticism. So when I'm being criticized by even some of my own peers, that's okay because I'm in good company. We say we follow a man and believe in a man, but many of us who say we follow him in doubt and suspicion anyway. So at the end of the day, some of us ain't no damn good anyway. You're not going to change your psychology because you're already a rusty lock. And we're trying to unrust you. So I'm not going to be thrown off by that because, again, he's in our midst, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and some of his laborers don't even listen to him. And some of those who he counsel don't even listen to him. So all of us stand in need to become more obedient to divine wisdom coming from Allah's messenger, in this case his Messiah, among us. Now, I know this is going on just a little bit, but I'm again preparing us through the Holy Quran for the attack on the Nation of Islam, on the domestic life, on the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Now, Brother Jabril Muhammad said one day you'll be standing in line paying for groceries and you'll see the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on a tabloid. And many of us stand in line and we see the Inquirer and other tabloids that bashes people's personal relationships because that's all it's about. Now, I believe, Brother Jabril Muhammad, maybe you don't. So, Surah 66 verse 1, O Prophet, why doest thou forbid thyself that which Allah has made lawful for thee? Lawful for thee, not for him or him, lawful for thee. Meaning something that was prohibited, but now Allah wants the Messiah, the messenger, to do it where others can do it. Why? Because others are not the Messiah or the messenger. That should be clear. But sometimes we don't see a distinction, because we don't know what that means. Some of us don't know, some of us do know. At least we talk like we know, but we just don't take it down to that. We don't take it down that far. That Allah has a relationship, personal relationship with the messenger, in this case, the Messiah that he chooses, personal relationship. The Holy Quran says that, they're so close, they're like two bows, even closer. You can't get no close than having the same mind of Allah. And the Messiah has that mind. Now, so this verse, 66, verse 1, of course, that produces drama because the Messiah, the messenger of God, he's apprehensive. God asks him, why are you delaying obeying my command? Are you worried about your wives or your consorts? So he's not disobeying Allah because the messenger don't do that. But there's some concern because the weight of what God is asking him to do makes that a delay. So God will force him in his own way to obey that command, because the apprehension is not disobedience, it's apprehension because of the consequences and circumstances that may come up. I mean, you're dealing with men and you're dealing with people, you're dealing with emotions in one sense, but you're dealing with, men who can think and they know cause and effect. And when the messenger of God knows the effect of something God is asking him to do, then of course, there's some concern about that. For himself, he's still going to obey. anyway, and God helps him obey because he is made and created to obey Allah and desires to. He just needs a little urging on. Now, so a drama ensues, and if you go down to verses 3, 4, and 5, and 6 all the way through, then you find that drama. But let me just pull out one verse here. Because this is in the Quran for a reason as well. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for bearing with me. But you will be so happy when we get through this great trial. We're promised a victory. But it's not anything that we won't have to earn. So I'm going to Surah 66. Verse 10. Allah sets forth an example for those who disbelieve. The wife of Noah and the wife of Lot. They were both under two of our righteous servants, but they acted treacherously towards them. So they availed them naught against Allah, and it was said, enter the fire with those who enter the fire. So we know Lot's wife turned into a pillar of salt. You know, understand what I'm saying. I'm saying that the attack is coming. We have the Quran as a reference. I'm not indicating that I know anything personal, and it's certainly not meant to talk about anybody in the domestic life of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad or the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Trust me, I'm not doing that because I don't know all of those things anyway. But I'm dealing with a defense in, you know, a sense that you can account for anything on the attack in this Quran. So for some of us who hear this and then you want to go from the rostrum and begin to talk about what I said, why don't you be accurate and hear what I'm saying? We don't even listen that well because sometimes our heart is so tainted with envy and jealousy, like we're competing for some kind of position. There is no competition. We're all servants of Allah. And we're all asked to do something in service to Allah. And it's all work and labor anyway. And at the end of it all, there's a tombstone waiting for each of us. So God asks us to grow up. None of us will be here that long anyway. So we labor while we can labor. And we should know that when the gray hairs start falling in and teeth start falling out. That means somebody needs to cut down a tree and begin to make our casket. So Allah is requiring people to mature, to grow up. I am not the enemy of anybody. And I'm not even making myself to be an enemy. I mean, not willingly being an enemy. If I tell the truth and the synagogue of Satan don't like me, like he don't like anybody who tells the truth, then fine, then I'm his enemy. But I'm not the enemy of anybody who loves the Honorable Elijah Muhammad or love the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I am not that. You just need to unplug your damn ears and stop putting words in my mouth that I'm not saying or reading into something that I'm saying instead of saying what I'm directly saying. That's immature and it's childish, and somebody needs to pull you to the side and tell you to grow the hell up. In this day and time, with an attack coming on the Messiah and on black people, all we can do is find little knickknacks and just put our own twist on them because we feel threatened. I am what I am by the grace of God and for your benefit. We all are servants. And you know I'm telling the truth, and some of you who are hearing it know that it's the truth. But some of us are so afraid to be men and women and want to be part of the 10,000 fearless. How are we part of the 10,000 fearless if you can't stand up on the truth that you know is being given to you because you got something in your mind of who you think should be saying this? That's so damn foolish. Again, there's a casket waiting for every one of us. In less than 100 years, most of us won't even be alive. So let's work while we have breath to work and work in unity. Now hear what I'm saying and take my words, which are sincere and for your benefit. And you can't prove it to be other than that unless you make a liar out of your damn self. And some of you are damn liars. Now, I got that said because it needs to be said. Now, we're going to end this part on Jesus being cleared of false charges. Surah 33, verse 52 and 55. It reads this: But when Jesus perceived disbelief on their part, he said, who will be my helpers in the way, in Allah's way? So Jesus is looking at people around him and he's already sensing disbelief. So some of us who, think we're in the know, you're being assessed too, just to let you know that, because you may not know that. You may see me as some kind of renegade. I beg to differ. I'm not a renegade. I'm more in line with Allah's will than what you may think I am. But can you say that about yourself? Anyway, when Jesus perceived disbelief on their part, he said, who will be my helpers in Allah's way? The disciples said, we are Allah's helpers. We believe in Allah and bear thou witness that we are submitting ones. Although we believe in that which thou hast revealed and we follow the messenger, so write us down with those who bear witness. Verse 54, and the Jews plan. Why can the Jews plan now? Because he got disbelievers around him. Maybe not immediately around him. I'm not calling anybody that's around the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan a disbeliever. That's not for me to decide. And I would not say that. Hear my words. We're dealing with the Holy Quran. But the disbelief could be black people in general or some other people who say that they're with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan but don't believe in what he's saying. It ain't just about a few people. That man has been across the globe, so everybody is on trial when he's attacked. Not just a few people at a certain mosque or a study group. The rappers are on trial. You say you want to be with him? You're down with 10, 10, 15? Well, God is going to hold you to that. Let's see if you stand up against the attack, or do you cower down? Even in your gangster rap, become a punctified Negro because white folks putting a little pressure on you. Yeah, we can find out who the real OGs are on this one. So, and the Jews planned and Allah planned, and Allah is the best of planners. And when Allah said, "Oh Jesus, I will cause you to die and exalt my presence and clear thee of those who disbelieve and make those who follow thee above those who disbelieve to the day of resurrection." See, it didn't say make those who believe in thee. It says those who follow thee. Because if you follow him, you're already a believer, but you're more than that because you are following in his footsteps. But now in the Yusuf Ali translation, he doesn't use "I will cause thee to die." He says, behold, Allah said, verse 55, "O Jesus, I will take thee and raise thee to myself and clear thee of the falsehoods of those who blaspheme. And I will make those who follow thee superior to those who reject faith to the day of resurrection." That's said a little differently. You can get another meaning from Yusuf Ali's version of that verse. But in the end, Jesus is not dying. He's being taken to God, and God is clearing him of falsehood. How does that happen? Because he raises a man in people who can explain and express what the devil tries to make seem dirty. In this case, the domestic life. And that is verified in Surah 48, verse 3. verse 1 through 3, and it reads, "Surely we have granted thee a clear victory, that Allah may cover for thee thy alleged shortcomings in the past and those to come, and complete his favor to thee and guide thee on a right path, and that Allah might help thee with a mighty help." It's almost the same thing. But why does he need to clear the messenger of God of alleged shortcomings? See, God guides his Messiah to do things, and the results sometimes are not ideal. They're not ideal. Sometimes we can envision how we want something to turn out. It don't turn out in the luxurious way that we decide, that we envision. Most of us would not envision going into something and seeing the house come down on us. That's just not a good vision for anybody who wants to live. Most of us have grand visions, but it don't turn out like that all the time. And we know that. But God knows at the end of it, there's something great that's happening. So again, there's sacrifices along the way, and he moves people in a way where it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable. In fact, it's painful, straight out painful, and even anguishing. But God assures us that after difficulty comes ease, so we get through it. Some of us don't like no pain. So we don't go anywhere, because there is pain in any kind of gain in this world. And coming up from a dead state is a lot of pain into a state of light. There's a lot of pain. Now, what's the false charge? What could be the alleged shortcomings or the alleged false charges? I'm going to end it with this. There was some more that I need to cover, but we'll save that for another time. Perhaps, inshallah, next message, we're going to continue on this. Well, the Holy Quran, Master Fard Muhammad, who we believe is Allah in person, came and he presented this book to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This is the law of the land. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad even said that he will not rest till the Holy Quran becomes the law of the land. Look where we live in America, where you got rape every 3 seconds, you got a murder going on, you got high level crimes taking place, low petty thefts taking place. I mean, it's a wilderness of beasts. Most of us are safer in a jungle. I mean, most people go to cabins and they don't even have to lock them, because if there's no bears around there, then you pretty cool. No raccoon is going to come in there. So to some degree, we're pretty protected in the wilderness. May not like spiders and all of that, but heck, it beats somebody breaking in and raping you and murdering you, which is another human being, which should have intelligence enough to do something for itself. So this becomes the law of the land. Well, it's the law of how the Messiah goes about his work. So if Allah says, "We have ordained for thee thy wives," then the Messiah is required to have wives, regardless of what the U.S. law says. Now, in the United States, they have banned polygamy. Most states and cities they call it bigamy if you're married to more than one wife. They have a word for that. But in the history of the United States of America, that's something new in terms of banning polygamy. The Mormons had a polygamous society in the 1800s. And because they were flourishing economically, women from other surrounding states were coming to join the Mormon church, because at that time, women's suffrage was going on. Women were being abused, locked out of voting, locked out of everything. But the Mormons had a community where, freedom was embraced. Well, the United States government and some of its pundits in Congress turned the tide and made it seem like women were being abused through the Mormon faith because of the polygamous unions, when many women from other states were jumping the fence to get to Utah so they can be a part of a community where women were respected and people pooled their resources and became economically strong. So it was the economics that forced the U.S. government to really invade Utah. Utah was not under the U.S. authority. They issued told Utah or the Mormons to get rid of polygamy. And they went to arms. I mean, it was a real battle. The U.S. invaded Utah, the U.S. government, because some of the men, and I have research on that, it wasn't about, how can it be about women suffering when you got women's lib marches going on in the 1920s? We're talking about the 1850s. See, they always want to put a noble spin on their evil. They knew that when you have people pulling resources, then they become an economic hub. A polygamous relationship could work as a corporation when you don't need childcare because you have one wife watching the children for everybody. I mean, so there's a lot of different constructs that challenges men who have companies that seize on individualism. So in America, we have a capitalistic system that targets children alone, toys and candy and foolishness. Then you have something for the senior citizens. So what they do, they break the family apart so they can have independent targets, to sell their goods and wares. That was the motivation behind the U.S. invasion of Utah, called the Utah War in 1857 and 1858. It was over polygamy. They went on to ban or outlaw polygamy throughout the whole of the United States. Some of that is gradually changing. So when you attack the domestic life of the Messiah, most of those who are legal analysts will function off the U.S. law, saying, well, we don't recognize them as wives. Who gives a damn what you recognize, because it's not done in your legal system, which is abusive anyway. But when you rape black women during slavery and had all these babies by black women that you raped, and you hamstrung black men by the thousands and millions, where was the legalities then? You're nothing but a damn devil, and a satanic devil as well. We don't give a damn about what you think. We will comply with the law as long as it does not conflict with our religion. And the Messiah is bound by Allah with this law, not your BS laws. So you could bring up in your mass media, well, it's a religious thing. We really don't recognize marriages. We don't care what you recognize. You don't recognize black people anyway. But we recognize you as Yaqub's grafted devil, made from black people to torment us and to be just what you've been, mortal enemies. So we're not going to even listen to what you got to say. So, right, thy alleged shortcomings is not a shortcoming. The women who are asked to be wives of the Messiah, they enter through faith. His word is good enough. The Messiah's word. I don't know about anybody else. Some brother here and there that want a few women and maybe, want to ride in on their welfare checks and all of those things like we do sometimes when we make the polygamy just seem, just put a crazy spin on it because all we want is women. So some brothers portray themselves as Muslims and want 5 or 6 women, but they got the welfare checks and you're not doing anything. That's not polygamy. That's your madness. In the name of a righteous guideline that God put together as an antidote to get us through what we have suffered in our male population being slaughtered. So the United States government does not recognize polygamous marriages. We don't give a damn what you recognize. We operate from the law of God, and you're not over us anyway. We've never been citizens. We're not that now. And we don't care what cracker you put in office. We're being governed by the Messiah from here on out. Just want you to know that. You're no longer in charge of black people at all. Now, what you can do is help us since you help mutilate us. And if you don't, God will bring his wrath down and kill millions of you at one time. And you ain't got too many times before all of you are wiped the hell out. Now, on the other end of that, for those who want to continue and all of the talking heads, the white women and the Negroes that want to come on and be an expert of the Nation of Islam during the attack of the Messiah. Let's look at the U.S. and some of the European records on women. Well, you ban polygamy, but you legalize prostitution. How about that one? The whole continent of Europe has legal prostitution. And if a woman is unemployed and she goes to an employment office and she gets offered a job as a prostitute and she don't take that job, she don't get benefits because they consider that a bona fide job. Look at the mindset of these creatures from the deep lagoon who are unrighteous and filthy and lower than the lowest snail. And I'm not just calling names. They are in fact that. A snail is more noble than these critters. So prostitution is legal in 61 nations in the world. 61 nations will be experiencing the wrath of God real soon in a horrific way. Just give you a heads up. Not too many nations going to be left. The Christ get through with his cleansing the earth of evil. Only 39 nations have made prostitution illegal. But you have 61 nations that enjoy it. In the United States, you have legalized prostitution in, as they say, 11 counties in Nevada. But it's in the U.S. everywhere. More women from other countries are trafficked to the U.S. from different Asian countries. You have prostitution in your sports arena, prostitutions in your entertainment. You embrace, embolden, encourage, sanction, ratify prostitution because you're nothing but a corrupt nation anyway, wanting to portray yourself as Christian and righteous. So yes, it's condoned, supported, protected in the United States, prostitution. And that's why it's still flourishing. Now, America, according to the FBI, there are currently an estimated 293,000 American children at risk of being exploited and trafficked for sex. This comes from a website called Think Progress, and the title of this research is called Girls, Human Trafficking, and Modern Slavery in America, not in Libya, not in Mozambique, but here in America. 40% of all human trafficking cases opened for investigation between January 2008 and June 2010 were for sexual trafficking of a child. 40% of the 200 or almost 300,000 cases. And while the term trafficking may be conjured images of desperate illegal immigrants being forced into prostitution by human smugglers, 83% of victims in confirmed sex trafficking cases in this country were American citizens. Almost done. The majority of these children being sold for sex are girls between the ages of 12 and 14 years old. They are girls abducted and lured by traffickers and then routinely raped, beaten into submission, and sometimes even branded. And that is so true. Some of them are branded by gangs. When the girls try to run away, their traffickers torture or gang rape them. This is America. So you are in no position to judge the Messiah in any challenges like some kind of ghoul. You're craving to find any kind of thing that you can present as dirt, like somebody is just insane. And then you put your spin on it and want to make a man who's noble, who raised up black women, a whole MGT, and even more being raised up every day to show you his work from the Honorable Elijah. I'm talking about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. U.S. government, where's your MGT? You don't have one. You got women in prisons. You got women on front line. to fight your war. It's calling it women's rights and equality for women so they can be gunned down. You got women being denied equal rights in the workplace. You got police departments that make way for women to be involved in sexual exploits if they're not being exploited by police themselves. Now that's proof to that. Maybe not all police, but hell, the police department, you don't represent a righteous government. Local police, you don't represent a righteous government. You don't represent a righteous state. You don't even represent a righteous nation. What law are you upholding? I mean, let's be real. No, you want to keep us nailed down so you can continue to abuse us. So, brothers and sisters, when we face the onslaught of the attack on the domestic life, then we have a lot of ammunition, and we should marshal our power and forces and come against those who attack the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the Nation of Islam. Now, you know, everything is not good. People always fall short. So you can always find some brother or sister who claims to be an official or somebody around him and say, well, they did this, that, and the other. Well, still, you are not in a position to judge any of us. God has already rendered his judgment on America and all of his systems, and you will be going to the bottomless pit. But I know you want to go down with a laugh, and you will go down with a laugh, but at the end of it, it'll be a scream that can be heard throughout the universe. When God put the last death nail into your daggone system of things and into your world. So we will pick up next week. I got some other areas that I desire to cover. May Allah continue to bless you as we go on this journey. 10, 10, 15. You know, let's clean it up and present ourselves better than what we are today when we get to 10, 10, 15. Assalamu alaikum.